privilege to be here and to really acknowledge the importance of the support that this planet, in the form of where I live, First Nations territory of Squamish, and indeed the whole of Turtle Island. When we think about land acknowledgement, one of the things that struck me is what's happening in Southern California, where the land is literally burning up for people, and that the notion that these flames are licking and getting closer to within literally hundreds of meters from nuclear power plants just kind of makes the concern we have in our organization just so linked. We're linked to the land, we're linked to what happens to it, we're linked to every little thing in the world really has got an implication for others. So with that, I'd like to really welcome us all to this opportunity to hear from Nancy and Paulina. They're going to talk about really an educational opportunity, a seminar which was held at our Canadian Senate in November, the Public Health Imperative on Disarmament, which was organized by both IPPNWC and ICANN in collaboration. Paulina is somebody I've got to know in the recent time because of this project, and she's a wonderful young woman. She's the Canada-based consultant for ICANN, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. And in this role, she carries out political advocacy with the federal government, Parliament, and event planning and coordination at both public and parliamentary levels. She has experience working in the Canadian Parliament for members of Parliament for both government and opposition. So she's got really an expertise in federal politics that she applies to her political advocacy work. She has a bachelor's degree in political science from the U of T and a double master's degree in international social and public policy from the London School of Economics and Fudan University. So that's Paulina's bona fides, and she's a remarkable young woman, and I look forward to joining with you in hearing her reflections and experience in this important work. And now Nancy, Dr. Nancy Covington, BSc and maths, and in particular physics. Nancy has a long relationship with physics and indeed has used that to increase her understanding, particularly of radiologics and the whole challenge of the nucleus really mining to its waste. So Nancy is a huge resource and a sterling member of our organization, and she grew up in Ottawa in the Cold War era. She saw people building bomb shelters and the duck and cover philosophy that was part of the reality back then, and the preparation for a nuclear attack, a nuclear winter. She sees, like many physicians, that prevention is so much more useful than any other approach to most problems. She was president of Physicians for Global Survival. She's a member of Voice of Women. She's a board member of IPPNWC. She's currently on the steering committee of the Canadian Network for Abolition of Nuclear Weapons, and she is particularly interested in the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and in particular, the important nexus between nuclear power and nuclear weapons. So with that, I would like you to welcome our two speakers, and I believe Nancy is to kick off.
Thank you, and welcome IPPNWC members and others. Can everyone hear me if I speak at this volume? Okay, if you can't, let me know right away. Anyway, I will now share my screen here and have a little PowerPoint for you. Okay. In this presentation, I hope to create a virtual tour for our event at the Senate, which was the public health imperatives of nuclear disarmament. To do this, I will introduce each speaker and give a sense of what they said. At the end, as there were a number of opportunities opened up which are time sensitive and possibilities really from the seminar that arose directly from the seminar, I'm hoping to hear your input about practical ways forward. The acronyms I'll use are ICAN, International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and the TPNW, which is the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. As we heard, we're the 4th anniversary of it coming into force in 2021. This is the actual Senate chamber, the so-called red chamber with its iconic doors, which are currently placed beside the temporary Senate. Our group had some fun here with challenges to our knowledge of Canadiana as we tried to figure out which coats of arms belong to which territory. As the real Senate has been under renovation for such a long time, the joke among the current senators is that they will age out before they ever get to meet here. This is the current Senate chamber, constructed in the old Ottawa train station, or the Rideau Centre. At the end of our visit, we did get to go up into the visitor gallery at the top, but our meeting took place elsewhere. This is Senator Mary Lou McPhedran. By the way, do you see a little green stripe across the projection? That's okay?
No.
Okay, good. Mary Lou McPhedran was the mastermind of this event. She's a lawyer from Manitoba. She's a prior Voice of Women member, and a position which she did give up when she went into the Senate for conflict of interest reasons. She conceptualized the event a couple of years prior to it happening, starting with the idea of MD senators, MD parliamentarians to meet MDs from our group. From there, it expanded. Mary Lou labeled our topic as one with psychological resistance, words which resonate with me, as this is where I think our future work lies. Mary Lou gave host positions for our event to Senators Ravalia and Moody, both positions, and she gave the details of programming to us. And by us, I mean ICAN and IPPNWC. Here is the actual well-equipped meeting room we used. There are about 30 or 40 people in presence. Now, this is John, who you just heard speaking in front of the disembodied, iconic Senate doors. He, along with Senator Mary Lou McPhedran, were co-moderators of this event. He pointed out the current poly crisis and need for coordinated work. Here they are. Ira Helfand was the first speaker, a member of our sister organization in the USA, Physicians for Social Responsibility. He spoke in graphic detail of the effects of a nuclear detonation. There we go. He emphasized that a nuclear famine could occur if fewer than 3% of the world's nuclear weapons were used, as in a conflict between Pakistan and India, killing up to every third person on the earth, potentially. You can remind yourself, the broken bars indicate that Russia and USA still have the most number of nuclear weapons. Now, on an optimistic tone at the end of his talk. He said he reminded us of big resets, which can happen all at once. For instance, one such reset was in Iceland, 1986, between Reagan and Gorbachev at the Reykjavik summit, where significant nuclear weapons treaties happened. He brought this out because we're now in another Republican presidency. Aygerim Svetnova from Kazakhstan spoke virtually, a human rights lawyer and nuclear disarmament activist. She spoke of being third generation of the peoples affected by the USSR military testing in Kazakhstan in the 50s and 60s. Hearing her testimony and its continuing effects was moving for all in the room. Now, Florian Emblenkamp is the ICANN advocacy officer. He traveled all the way from Geneva to be with us. He says 98 countries have signed, ratified. One more country means half of the world's countries are involved. Now, he gave an international perspective of how Canada is viewed. And some people may find some of the things he said, maybe not this group, but some people probably would find it upsetting. Of course, the number one thing, Canada needs to send an official observer to the third meeting, TPNW, in March. This is what might be upsetting. The Non-Proliferation Treaty, he says, is dysfunctional, yet Canada upholds it and doesn't recognize its dysfunction. Canada's rhetoric on nuclear disarmament issues have remained static for a decade, and we can attest to that because of the letters we get back when we write. They haven't changed for a decade in wording very much. Options for Canada, such as putting the TPNW into the platforms, into party platforms perhaps, or into the election material. Here is Leah, who you've already seen, and she has some amazing youth leader. She was at the UN. She was chosen twice from the United Nations Officer for Disarmament Affairs. She spoke on the disproportionate gender and age impacts of nuclear weapons. She talked of Canada's feminine foreign policy and said that it can be demonstrated or helped along by Canada joining the ETPN or at least going to the March meeting. And of course, she had a big role in making this meeting happen. Okay, this was my turn. I spoke about the need for new leadership in the area of nuclear disarmament and peace arena. And since I spoke a lot about Alexa McDonough, here she is. She was such a leader at the time. She was a Canadian politician, provincial, federal levels, outspoken on peace issues at the UN and Canada. She introduced ICANN to the Canadian Parliament in 2007. And I'd just like to read a little excerpt from what I said. I wish to invoke a memory of a similar gathering as we have here today. This event took place 17 years ago in the splendor of the Centre Bloc during the Conservative government of Stephen Harper, with a dozen parliamentarians and many aides. A Canadian Hiroshima survivor and advocate for disarmament, Zetiko Thurlow, was center stage and vividly described her escape through the ruins of her school in Hiroshima, where many of her classmates died. Her rescuers said, "See the light coming through that opening. Crawl towards it as quickly as you can." These words have stuck with peace activists, becoming almost a call to action. Member of Parliament Alexa McDonough then introduced the ICANN. ICANN at that point was only 1 month old. And Canada was the very first parliament in the world to embrace it. That's how forward we were at that time. But then we lost leadership. Alexa was sadly overtaken by Alzheimer's and was unaware that ICANN obtained its original goal of a nuclear ban treaty and was unaware that Suzuko had become co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize given to ICANN for creating the TPNW. Of course, the hope of this Senate event was that it might just reignite interest to find such a Canadian political leadership in this area, maybe even recreate excitement in the movement. Hetty Fry wanted to be with us by Zoom. Her technology failed, so Senator Mary Lou McPhedran read out a a motion, a resolution she had made a few years ago on the line calling for a comprehensive nuclear weapons convention. And you have to remember, a treaty or convention are very similar. And for a long while, we were just going after a convention. She also made the complementarity of the TPNW very much with a non-proliferation treaty, because this is a stumbling block that many people have with the treaty. MP Helena Jaczek, a physician near Toronto, former Minister of Health, summarized the event prior to questions and comments, which are coming from many people in the room and here, people online. Here we are listening to Senator Flora Delez Osler, an ENT surgeon. She was wondering, how do we make people understand these issues, just general public? Okay, Mary Lou McPhedran's concluding remarks that a parliamentary group would be formed, she is initiating this, to include current and retired senators and parliamentarians to lead on this issue. And she said, of course, at that point, that the host, Senator Ravalli and Ramoudi, would introduce us in the Senate chamber at the end. And here, in this grouping, there are two Liberals, two NDP, one senator, but I want to point out to you the lady with her eyes closed in the gray jacket, and more about her later. Immediately after the ceremony, Ira Helfand produced the gold Nobel Peace Prize from 1985 as a photo op. And yes, many people wanted their photos. Now, this slide I put in here because it's the third one over is Julien Tremblay. He is a member of Global Affairs Canada, and he met with us privately after the event. And I asked his specific permission to put this photo in, and he agreed to that. But of course, what we spoke about is Chatham House rules with Global Affairs people. This is Nate Erskine Smith. He bubbled around the meeting room, muttered that he wanted to interview Ira Helfand for his blog. And then he said, maybe we can get together 20 Liberal members of Parliament to sign a letter. He said that's all it takes to get, because the Liberals are currently or were in power, and all it takes is that number to get a motion on the floor, and then maybe they could get Canada to attend the TPNW in March. And this is something we need to follow up. Lisa Marie Barron, remember the lady in gray, made a statement 3 days after our event. It is time for Canada to engage. At minimum, we need to send an official observer delegation to the meeting in March of the TPNW. 2 weeks later, December 10th, she made a motion in Parliament, which was unanimously accepted. I won't read it out to you, but I will point out that she took advantage of the December 10th day, as it is an International Day for Human Rights, which meant the Nobel Committee had awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for this past year to Nihan Danku. Um, she, the end part, she wanted to encourage the government to take concrete steps to honor this award, including enhanced engagement with the TPNW, participation in international disarmament efforts, and collaboration with civil society to advance the cause of nuclear abolition. These are words we need to work with. Achievements, attendees from all parties. The conservative member, I have to confirm with Mary Lou McPhedran, but there were 11 that I counted, and I think there were some more online. Good discussion as a result of the tight organization, contact with Global Affairs Canada, a new parliamentary Senate group to be formed, a motion of MP Lisa Marie Barron, which we just discussed. Future work, possible choices. Connect with MP Lisa Marie Barron, and she's in Nanaimo in BC. How to engage with her unanimous motion. Connect with Global Affairs Canada again. Develop election materials. These are all things that I would appreciate your input into. Florian Edmundcamp has final advice. Support each other's groups and celebrate small victories and have fun while doing it. The peace community, he says, is like a family away from home, and we felt very comfortable with him. There were many, many photo ops. That's us again. And finally, I want to lead into Pauline as Shan. The good discussion and tight programming happened because of her and Leah and Mary Lou McPhedran's assistant. Paulina will now describe how an effective parliamentary outreach program is created. Thank you.